Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar, free training. So happy to have you. Today's webinar, as always, is so powerful. Today we're going to be really going into our thoughts and how powerful our negative thoughts are. And I am very honored that you're here. And it really tells me a lot about the kind of person you are, that you're taking this time to really think about what's going on in your life. Today, we're going to go a little bit deep into our beliefs and our thoughts. And I am very happy that you're here. So thank you for joining us. And I'm just going to change my screen. This has been a cardigan month. I actually bought this. Oh, yes, you can see me. I can't see you. I don't like that I have webinars. I can't see your faces, but I bought this cardigan last week. So I thought it was kind of unique and fun, and it goes with my new pants that I got. So, and those who are listening on the replay, you'll just have to check out my YouTube channel. All right. So what we're going to do today is we're going to be talking about our negative self-talk and how that has caused you to gain weight and keep the weight on. And so I'm going to go through our beliefs and the ways that we think about ourselves and how we can change that. And I'm actually you're going to walk away with 3 tools that are going to help you to create permanent change. So how does that sound? So I do recommend you get a paper and a pen, and you can always watch the replay. It's on my YouTube channel. And when you're on my email list, I send the replay to you. But it is really helpful to kind of take notes. I have a lot of notes here on my board. Don't feel overwhelmed by them. And if you want, you can always take a screenshot with your phone of the boards. Okay. So, and always ask me any questions that you have in the chat. So in the chat, just write anything and I will be keeping my eye on that as well. Okay. All right. So 3 ways to change the dialogue and lose the weight for good. That's what we're going to be talking about today. So did you know that 95% of your thinking is unconscious? So when we think about that, I want you to think about when we learn something new, we actually create a weak neural pathway. So think about when we were first learning how to do something, when a child is learning to walk. It's a very, unstable, they're not very secure in that learning process. And there has to be this reinforcement. Now, I have a picture of a toothbrush and chocolate bars and pop, okay? So when we learn to brush our teeth, there's not an immediate reward. It isn't, because it's not like your future you is saying, oh, way to go. Like when you're 90 or when you're even 20, good job. You brushed your teeth. You have, don't have cavities. That doesn't happen. And so we don't get an immediate reward. And so that's kind of lacking. So we have to use our frontal brain that says, good job, you're taking care of your teeth. Whereas when we drink pop or eat chips or chocolate bar, there is like an immediate dopamine reward. And so what can happen is, and this is especially in regards to weight, is because we have that really strengthened, reinforced emotional response when we have pop or a chocolate bar, that neural pathway becomes stronger and stronger. That's all that's happening. And so if 95% of our thoughts are unconscious and we are getting, and our learning process is this way, it's we have a weak neural pathway when we're first learning something. If we're not getting an immediate reward, then that pathway isn't as strong. So it makes total sense why when we eat chocolate or pop or something with refined flour or sugar, it's reinforced very quickly rather than eating vegetables or brushing our teeth or something like that. Okay. So what I'm teaching you today is we're going to be talking a lot about our beliefs and our thinking process. And going back to why we can't lose the weight or keep the weight off, it's because we haven't been aware of our thinking processes. And in my program, I teach, first of all, hey there, I teach you how to understand about weight loss science. Weight loss science is actually simple. It's so fun to see all of you, by the way. Thanks, Mary, for saying hi. I love that you're all here. So weight loss science is actually simple. And the weight loss people don't want us to know that because it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. But so that's one thing I do in my program. And then the second thing I do is I talk about our emotions. And the third thing I talk about is our future self. So what I want, what this process here is, this is actually teaching you, this is how the steps we take to living the life we want. So first of all, we need to notice what we're thinking. So if 95% of our thoughts are unconscious, we're only noticing 5%. So even if I could teach you today to notice even like 5% more, what a difference that would be. Okay. So first we need to notice what we're thinking. How do we notice what we're thinking? Well, when you do notice what you're thinking, so let's say you're watching a movie, a Hallmark movie, for example. You're all of a sudden you're thinking and you're going to be starting to cry because it's so sweet, or something's happening and you have a thought like, oh, that's so sweet, or oh, that's so wonderful, or oh, that's so sad. And because your thought creates, you have an emotional response, you could start crying. Okay. So all of our thoughts create an emotion. And that emotion, that fuel, and we're going to talk about that in a little while, creates a reaction in our body. So if we're like we have a thought like, oh, that baby is so sweet. And then we have the feeling of love. That love is like, it feels in our heart. Or there's like, if we have a thought like, oh, that's so funny. And we have an emotion of humor, then we can have a physical response of laughing. Okay. So we have a thought that creates an emotion. That emotion, if we allow it, it actually goes into our body, and we might have some feeling in our stomach, or we might have a tightness in our chest, or we could feel maybe even really light. So that is number one that I want you to be thinking about, is our thoughts create an emotion and we have a physical response. So I want you to think about our physical cues that are showing us that we're having an emotion. That means that we are living consciously. So maybe even if I said to you right now, I'm like, we're going to have a test at the end. We're going to have a test. So you better make sure that you take all the notes. What physical response do you have right now? You're probably feeling like, I get a little nervous. You might have this discomfort because chest. Oh, I gotta be alert. Okay. So that is what's happening. So we're going to notice what we're thinking. And now, how does that thinking affect your feelings, your actions, and your results? Then only you truly understand that it's your thinking that's causing the rest. So because I said that, like, we're going to have a test. Now all of a sudden you have a thought like, oh, I got to be careful. I got to take notes. I got to do this. I got to do that. Or you could be like, get off, alert, alert, take off. By the way, there is no test at the end. Okay. But as soon as we can become more aware of our thinking, then we get to be always the one who gets to decide what's going to go on. So we decide what you want your result. So that's only you truly understand that it's your thinking causing all the rest. So because you get to decide what your thinking is, then you can decide that you're going to be a conscious human of your thinking. Then you decide what you want your results to be. Now, one of the things that I teach is you get to put whatever you want in your result line, And then I teach you how to achieve that. It's pretty amazing. And then what will you need to do, feel, and think to create that result? So this is the process that I take my clients through. This is the process that I have created for myself that I go through every day. So that's what's created me losing 50 pounds and keeping it off. It's what's created the kind of business I always wanted, full-time life. Well, I didn't even know I wanted it until I discovered life coaching and all of that. It's what's created all of these amazing results in my life, is because I have now understood this is the process of me creating the results that I want. So this essentially means that we are now the driver for our own life, and we aren't at the whim and mercy of other people. Sounds so amazing, right? So it's taking this unintentional, these thoughts, because I want you to think right now, just take a step back. Everything you have in life right now is what you created. So take a snapshot. Whatever weight you are, however much money you have in the bank, the kinds of relations, the quality of relationships you have with people, all of that is literally a snapshot of what you have done. You have created that for yourself. So if it's what you like, then you have done that for yourself. If it's not, this is where we get to get really curious of why you're unintentionally having this life. Why are you keep creating the same results? Okay. And so to go to an intentional life. Okay. So this is where we get some participation. So in the chat, I'm going to show you. So this is what we're talking about here. Now, I am a life coach with the Life Coach School. I'm a certified weight and life coach. And this is one of the main tools that we use in our work. So as in life coaches from the Life Coach School. And it's called the model. And this is what's happening all the time in our life. So we'll take a circumstance. So a circumstance is just something that is very neutral. So in this example, the number on the scale, that literally we could take it to a judge, court of law, and we would have no disputes if that's what's happening. Okay. So whatever the number on the scale is, totally neutral. And then you have a thought, I don't like it. I don't want to look at it. That's your thought. I don't want to look at it. And when you have that thought, you feel ashamed. Okay. I'm just going to take this one, and then you guys can help me with this one over here. Okay. So then you feel ashamed. And when you feel ashamed, you don't spend time problem solving because you're like, I don't want to look at it. You try to eat healthy, but then you lose your strength or willpower because you feel so ashamed. So you're not like connected to your body. You're just like, I need to do this. And it's like white knuckling. You try to like problem solve out of being ashamed of yourself. You turn to food for the comfort because you're definitely not going inside yourself. You're staying unconscious about the food that you're eating. How often, I know for myself, I think about how often I ate and I didn't even realize how much I was eating, what kinds of food I was eating. I had so many excuses. I wasn't even really realizing all the things that I was eating for. And then you look for reasons why you never can lose the weight. So it's like, well, it's just in my hormones. They're all out of whack. It's menopause. It's not my fault. Or the ladies in my family, this is just how things are. Corona, I can't get out and do all the things that I used to do. You go through all those reasons. Okay. So this is where I want you to put in the chat what you think. So if you are spending your time not problem solving and you're trying to eat healthy, but you're losing strengths or willpower, you're turning to food for comfort, you're staying unconscious about your food, and you're looking for the reasons why you never can lose weight. If you're spending all your time doing these actions because you feel ashamed of the thought, I don't want to look at it, which is the scale, what is the result that's going to happen because of that? What is that result? You never create any change. You never create change. So you continue to have the same problem. All right, so you continue to have the same problem, nothing ever changes. You never solve the actual problem, okay? Now, you're like, oh my goodness, no wonder I've just kept going on this roller coaster of weight loss. No wonder for the last 30, 40, 50, however many years, it's because you're unconsciously just doing the same thing. So you've kind of learned this certain behavior. You have this thought that you didn't really check into this thought, but it's just kind of this default thing. And so you're feeling ashamed. And when you feel ashamed, you're doing all of these actions. And then of course, nothing ever changes. Okay, so not so much fun, is it? All right, so now we're going to go over on this side and we have the number on the scale. Now, if we wanted to intentionally live a life, so in the ideal world, what do you want as a result? Whatever the number on the scale is. Okay. This is when you have to do a little bit of thinking. Okay. Or, so in this model, so we have the circumstance is just neutral. We have our thought. So today we're talking about the power of I was talking about our negative self-talk and how detrimental it is. So you see this negative self-talk here. I don't want to look at it. And so when you have that negative, like, look at you, you're so fat. What's wrong with you? You can never change. A lot of that is the ashamed, right? Right. You want happiness and joy. How else do you want to feel about the number on the scale? Do you want to feel empowered by it? Do you want to feel like you have the ability to change it? You can own that number. You can decide like how you want to be. So there's a lot of different ways of thinking about this to remain at a healthy weight without it. I gotta open this up now. Without it being consuming. Yeah, what I used to think a lot was if I could just get to that proper number on the scale, then I wouldn't have to worry about it anymore. Because my weight it seemed to dictate my worth, everything. I want to look forward to getting on the scale, right? Because if you look forward to the number on the scale, what is the number on the scale going to do? It's going to reinforce that you're a good human taking care of yourself, or that like what you're doing is working, right? Okay, so let's go with, I want to look forward to the number. Okay, so if we had the thought, I look forward to looking at the number on the scale. Okay, that's a good one. I remind myself it's only a number. Okay, so when we have this, I want to look forward to getting on the scale. So I look forward to getting on the scale. So what's the emotion when you say, I look forward to getting on the scale? What's that emotion? Is it anticipation, excitement? Yes. Okay. So when you add anticipation, okay. When you think about anticipation, what are the actions? So all of you, even though Nancy's writing these in, you can all contribute. So if you're anticipating the number on the scale, right? Curiosity, what are the actions you're going to take? So you are conscious about the foods you eat. You probably, you've planned them. Yeah, you planned foods. You're probably moving your body, drinking water. Oh, let's put you in, you're drinking lots of water. You might have some movement to your body, right? Because you're like, ooh, I'm excited about the number on the scale. Like, ooh, I went for like a 20-minute walk. I wonder how that's going to affect the scale. And I planned this food. I wonder how it's going to affect the scale. Like kind of like what with this curiosity. And you're like, ooh, I'm connecting with my body. I'm connecting with my thoughts. I feel bad when I write movement because I'm sorry, body. I don't move my body as much, but you take care of your body, right? So you do a lot of things to take care of this body. And so when you have movement and you're drinking water and you're planning foods and you're conscious about the foods that you eat, what is the result of those actions? Because you're gathering a lot of data, aren't you? Oh, I should write that down. So you're data collecting because you're super conscious of what you're doing. So the result is you create a very effective plan for weight loss. Because you're so conscious of what you're doing. So this is very interesting. So we have the intentional model of like, I can't wait to get on the scale. You have this anticipation. I look forward to it. And then you are like consciously eating, you're planning, you're recording things, you're drinking your water, you're aware of your emotions, all of that. And so now you've created this. So I talk about bridging the gap, but how do you go from the same circumstance, number on the scale, to the same thing, from I don't want to look at it to I look forward to getting it on the scale? Like that is complete opposites, from ashamed to anticipation. And you can see from when your fuel is ashamed, these are the actions you take. And when the fuel is anticipation, these are the actions you take. And this is really important. When the emotion is strongest, there is where real change occurs. And the problem is, so again, when I was talking about this webinar, you are what you think. And the problem is if you aren't aware of your thinking, then of course you're not aware of your emotions. So one of the suggestions I'm giving to you on this free training is to start paying attention to our body cues. So if we're not aware of our thoughts, we can start paying attention to ashamed or anticipation, because there is a very different vibration in our body of ashamed, right? Our body is like kind of maybe more hunched over. We're not as open. We might kind of come into ourselves. There's not a lot of wanting to share anything. We're trying to maybe keep things to ourselves. Like you can all kind of feel your body to anticipation. You're like, oh, I'm so excited. I can't wait. Like if you ordered some new fabric and it's like, it's going to be coming any day now. And you like actively go to your, the post-op box and you're so excited. And there's like this totally different energy. So that is one of the main takeaways I want you to have from this webinar, is really starting to pay attention to your body cue, like the cues that are happening within your body. And you're like, oh my goodness, look at me. I'm like anticipating something. I'm excited. What are the thoughts that are coming from this anticipation? Okay. It's going to be really, really helpful, because true change, when the emotion is the strongest, that's where the real change occurs. So if you're spending a lot of time in like worried, like uncertainty, shame, all of that, that is the dominant emotion, and you're not going to have transformation. You're not going to make something different than it already is if you're having all those same kind of feelings. Okay. All right. So one of the things that is super important to understand is that it's not the events in our lives that shape us, but rather our beliefs about what they mean. So let's do a little bit of exercise here. So let's go to an event, for example, so COVID. So what would you say are your beliefs about COVID? And of course, I couldn't do a webinar without talking about COVID. And if that one is a little bit more tricky, what are your beliefs about a baby? Okay. So this is fun. This is a fun one. What are your beliefs about a guilt meeting? What are your beliefs about a mistake on a quilt that you made? So right now, we're just like going through your brain, COVID killing. Yeah. So belief is like it's killing people. What are some other beliefs that we have about these are just events? What are your beliefs? Baby, sweet kisses. Oh, and smells. Oh my goodness. I've had 2 clients in the last week or so have new grandbabies, and I have seen them on the screen, and it's just like killing me not to be able to like smell them and touch their sweet faces and count and look at their fingers. They're so sweet and tiny and amazing, right? So we have different beliefs about all of these things. You guys are being really quiet today. There's lots of you on this call. That's okay. It's all good. So if you're doing it on your own, that's totally fine. So we all have beliefs about things. Now, beliefs are often based on misinterpretations of past experiences. So how often are we having a belief about something that we don't even check it? We're just like, oh, that's just what I believe. Because a belief is actually just a thought that we've practiced over and over. It had to start somewhere, right? And it was literally just a thought. We're like, I don't look good in red. And then we just practice, and it's just like, we just believe that about ourselves. It's like, yeah, I'm just not someone who can wear red. Or whatever that is, okay? So what are some past experiences that have influenced your current beliefs? This is interesting. So some of you might have shared this with me. I won't say any names, but your singing voice. So I want you to think, or your body, your housekeeping skills. So I kind of want you to go through your mind, going through it and thinking, somebody at one point might have said something about your singing voice. I was selected to sing in a choir when I was 8 or 9? And so it was always funny to me because I thought, I didn't really think I had a good singing voice, but some people said I did. And so I just kind of believed that I guess I could be a good choir singer. And sometimes I felt like I could even sing a little bit nicer if I had a lot more practice. Because when I was 8, I believe I was 8, my brother and I were selected to sing in a special choir. And then my mom put me in Kiwanis Festival, and then I sang, and I actually got an award. But it's interesting because even though I have a lot of evidence that I could be a really good singer, I don't really believe that I'm a really good singer. So funny. So, but it's interesting because some of us might have heard like, don't sing. Maybe we had a choir director or a teacher or a parent or someone made a comment and it just like closed us up. And we've had all sorts of beliefs from that. Or your body. Think about, did someone make a comment? Did someone do something, say something? I had a sister, my brother's girlfriend. She said that I was basically the girl version of my brother, who is like 6'5" and 280 pounds. I had a really hard time trying to decide what I thought about that, right? So people will say things and words, your housekeeping skills. Maybe someone made an off comment and that has shaped the way that you think about yourself. I almost think about it as, I just had this image of when there's the water that is flowing down a mountain, and it gets, if someone makes a comment or they divert it a little bit, it will have a little bend in it. And that bend in the way the water is coming down, the more the water comes, it just gets a heavier and heavier increase. And it just goes deeper and deeper in a valley. And if someone doesn't reroute the way the water is, there's like a really big crevice that goes through that way. And so we just have this very strong belief, because it's now very rooted in who we are. But it was just one little comment, and they said it. Who knows if they were having a good day or a bad day or whatever it was. And now it just like over and over, it just reinforces. You think about how erosion works, right? Eventually we get valleys because of the way the water erodes. And so if you don't check that belief, then we have permanent damage or permanent thoughts that have hindered us from maybe accomplishing the goals that we really wanted. Okay. So one of the things that I teach my clients, very first things I teach you, is that we are 100% worthy. We are. There's nothing you can do to change it. The day you were born, the day that you came into this earth, on this earth, you were already 100% perfect and worthy and glorious and strong and capable. And no matter what you do, nothing you can do or nothing you haven't done can change that. Your worth is already set, 100%. And this, when I remember learning about this concept, and I grew up Christian and on all of that, but there was something in the way that my past beliefs was that I'm not good enough. And there are two main beliefs of all humans. And I'm going to do this in another webinar. But there's two core beliefs that keep us down. One is I'm not good enough. And the second is something about me, about my situation, my conditions I was missing out on them. I knew I wasn't going to say it right. There's two, misunderstanding of our own worth. So like, I'm not good enough, or misunderstanding of our own life. So there's like, something about my life wasn't good enough. I should have had better parents or home life or education or something. And so that's a shame and a blame. And those are very deep rooted. And I will be sharing that in a future episode. But I really want you to believe this. Like when you look at a baby, they are 100% worthy. They are like, and we are just as worthy as they are. And so when you can truly believe that, we are just on this earth having different experiences. That's all there is. Now, the problem that happens, so we have what's called illogical beliefs. And we're going to talk about these illogical beliefs and really think about what's happening when we have that, okay? So, and I like to think about this as we're mining, when you go down into the ground and we're like digging things out, we're mining for these beliefs. So I'm going to give you some examples. So as a child, we tend to blame ourselves for everything because we don't understand complexities of other people's lives. So let's say our parents were fighting when we were a kid. And we might have internalized the blame for some of those things. So for example, our parents were fighting and we thought that if we were better behaved, then our parents wouldn't fight because we're looking for ways to fix it. So even though those aren't related, but as a child, that was how we tried to try to get some sense of what was going on. And so we have like our behavior and equal that to our parents' marriage. So they're not related, but it was this way that as a child, we tried to understand this complexity of a human life. And so we internalize this blame. And even though it's completely out of our control, we actually form a belief that if we were better behaved, then our parents wouldn't fight. Okay. So can you think about how this can relate to you in other ways? Like if we were smarter, we would be thinner. How often did you have that thought? Or if I was smarter, I wouldn't be so broken, or there's all sorts of thought errors that we have, okay? So now one of the problems is, because we have this illogical belief system, because we have 95% of our thoughts were unconscious, and the only way that we can change our life is that it has to be changed on a belief level if you want it to be permanent, okay? So that's why we just can't treat the symptom, but we have to like dig deep and find the belief that caused you to get there in the first place. So if you believe you'll always be overweight, it'll be very difficult to have permanent weight loss. So beliefs and reality tend to be reflective of each other. So when reality starts to contradict a belief, there's like tension. And that tension is often, it's very uncomfortable, and that's stress. So if we have two choices to reduce the stress, we can either change our belief, or we can, or change reality. And so it was super interesting for me, where I truly believed that I could not lose weight ever again, because I had bursitis in my hip, I had arthritis in my foot, I started getting arthritis in my ankle, I had perimenopause, so my hormones seemed to be all out of whack. And I started to truly believe that I could never be a person that could be ever thin again. And because I was looking for all the evidence. So there was a lot of stress. There was a lot of pressure. And it wasn't until because before, when I wanted to lose weight, I could just run. And I would just run, and I would run, and I'd run. And 5 days a week, 6 days a week, and it was awesome. So I now had this new belief that I could never lose weight unless I could run. And because I had done physio and all this stuff with my bursitis, it was like, it was never going to happen. And I couldn't walk long enough to lose that weight, because I couldn't burn as many calories as I was used to. So my belief was, you're always going to be overweight, and there's nothing you can do about it. So that's when and so then all this negative self-talk started happening. And there was a lot of stress. There was a lot of tension between the reality and the belief. And so one of the things that I do with my clients is I teach them, of course, to think about their thinking, but we challenge our beliefs. And the thought model that I showed previously, that exposes, talking about mining, we're actually looking for those beliefs in our body, in our mind, and we expose them, and we can actually start looking at them. And so we can actually make permanent change. It's very exciting. And so, like the example I gave about a child thinking that it was his fault or her fault that her parents got divorced because she wasn't well behaved enough. And so, so many of us we hang on to beliefs we've developed when we were too young to even know any better. And there's no one to remind us now that, hey, what you think of you is the most important. And so one of the things that I really specialize in is perfectionism. And so I actually wrote a 12-step perfection recovery program. If you're interested, you can talk to me about it. And because one of the main problems, and the reason why people pleasing, perfectionism, and procrastination, I call them the triple P, are such a problem, is because we spent so much time thinking we had to solve all these other problems that weren't in our control. And we worried so much about what other people thought of us than what we thought of ourselves. And so I often tell my clients, I say, hey, listen, we just didn't get the memo that said eventually, obviously when you're a kid, it's important to get your parents' approval. It's important. They have a responsibility to take care of you. But eventually when you're 18, 19, 20, it's now more important than what you think of you than what your parents think of you, or what your society or your teacher or your piano instructor or the ladies watching you at church or whatever it is. it is actually more important because now we're conscious and we can decide, like, do I like the way I'm thinking? Did I do a good job? Do I like my reasons? Okay. So we've got to really look at these old illogical beliefs and evaluate them with these new adult eyes. And that's one of the tools that I teach my clients is emotional adulthood. And that's helping them be 100% responsible for themselves. Now, as I said, we need to connect with our bodies so that we can really see what's going on. So I'm going to give an example that might have happened in your life. So your friend said, oh, let's get together. And you're like, oh, that'd be so fun. So your friend says, I'll text you and we can get together. All right. So you check you're like really looking forward to it. Oh, this is going to be so great. We're going to connect. It's going to be awesome. But you check your text messages and she hasn't responded. And then you check again and she hasn't responded. What starts happening, especially if you don't believe that you're enough, if you don't believe that you are worthy, that you are a good person. So you check your phone, there's no message. So these negative emotions come. Now remember, negative emotions are literally just a doorway to our beliefs. It's perfect, right? You're like, oh, amazing. Let's see what's really going on. So do you have a fear? Now, are you afraid of rejection? Don't feel worthy of a relationship? There you go. Bingo. We found the crappy belief system. It's like, uh-oh, she's going to reject me. I'm not a good person. She was just saying that to be nice. And now I don't feel like I'm worthy of a relationship. What? Don't you remember just like 10 minutes ago, I said, you're 100% worthy? The day you were born, you were already worthy. You can't change that. But if you have this crappy system, belief system, which is illogical and it's okay, then of course you're not showing up as your best version of yourself. So did you have much love from friends or acceptance as a child? Did you accept yourself as a child? Did you have a loving connections as a child? So the thing is, we just bring these illogical and these thoughts along with us because a belief is just a thought that we've thought enough times that we just believe it's just true. Remember, like going down the mountain, the water, someone just made a diversion, like, oh, she wasn't very pretty or whatever it was. And now we just have this really strong rut, this crevice that's been etched in, and we haven't corrected it. We haven't even thought about it. We haven't even given it a chance to bring to light that could possibly be a problem, right? So there we had some negative thinking, and it just went to default. I guess I'm not good enough. It's evidence that I'm broken. People don't like me. I should have been more well-behaved, whatever that is. So imagine you knew that you were worthy of deep connection, solid in knowing how fabulous you are, never questioning. So when the friend didn't text back, but if you had this, like truly believed that you were secure and calm because you believe you're worthy, then it wouldn't matter to you. You're like, oh, guess she's busy. Maybe I can text her. Or you just move on and then you just meet other new friends and then eventually she will. How often has that happened that you got yourself all riled up and all worried and it wasn't even a thing? Okay. All right. So the third part of my program to love yourself thin is to creating a future you whom you love being. Now this is a little bit tricky because I think a lot of us don't realize that we have the power to change our lives. Because we just have those same, remember when we learned emotions, when we learned anything, we had this weak neural pathway. And so brushing our teeth, we don't get that same hit, reinforcing it. Like we don't have this like, yay, you're such a good human, you're taking care of your teeth. Rather than a chocolate bar or pop that's like, whoa, that's like amazing, right? It reinforces, I'm sad, chocolate bar pop. It feels so good right away. There's like an immediately, so we've got this learned behavior. If you have a negative something, you go to ice cream or chocolate bar or whatever that is, because you now get this, like this, the reward system is so much stronger in our learning. That's all that's happening. I mean, same thing with people pleasing, right? You don't listen to yourself and you please somebody else and like, oh, you're such a good human. Thank you for doing that, because you aren't giving yourself, like if you do something for you, like eat well or think nicely about yourself, you don't say, hey, good job, Dara, way to go. You're needing Mary or Marlene to tell you you're good enough. So now you're at the mercy. I think of this like a little dog panting, like, pet me, pet me. You're at the mercy of other people telling you you're good enough. So then you become a people pleaser. And so you just, what you think of you is like, you're at the back burner now. You're not as important. So you're just like reinforcing this illogical belief that your worth isn't set and that you aren't whole and good enough. Okay. So this is really an important concept, because we're always having the story. We're always telling ourselves the story. And it's very interesting when you think about what is the genre of story you tell. For so long, my genre of story was, I'm not good enough. I need people to help me. So you think about if you watch a movie, if there's like a sad scene, it's like the music is slower and the lights probably are lower. Or the scene, the genre is like happy and go lucky, that the music is bright and cheerful and it's probably sun shining and there's flowers. Like that's the genre I'm talking about. So what is the genre that you tend to tell about yourself? So when I'm talking about negative self-talk, what is the genre? What is the story that goes over and over in your head? Now, this is interesting. When you think about our brain actually doesn't know if something is real or not. So it only knows if you believe it by the way your body feels when you think it. So let's say you go to the movies or you watch a movie at home, because we're not going to the movies right now. But you could be watching a movie. Like I watched Little Women with my daughter and a friend. I cried like 7 times because my brain was believing that it was feeling all these things, like when her sister died and like all those parts in Little Women, like who's watched that movie? It's so good. But like my brain could not differentiate between this is not real, because I actually truly believe those feelings. Like I allowed myself to be immersed enough in the movie that it was like I was so touched by all of it, because my brain didn't know if it was real or not, but it did believe that it was. I mean, it believed these things, and I had tears and I had joy and I had all these physical reactions because I had all these different emotions because I was watching it. I was letting it all in. We don't realize how powerful our thoughts are. Okay. So very interesting. So what is the genre? What is if you were having your movie, if your life was to be a movie, what would be the flavor of it? Mine, hands down, was I'm not good enough. I need to keep going. My house needs to be perfect. My kids, I was a control freak, a control enthusiast, because I needed to have everything in order for me to feel any sort of semblance of like, I could be calm. I could believe that I was good enough. I was needing all my external things to make me feel better internally. And if it was out of whack, I would just stay up later. I would take something else on, and just to get other people's approval. I was exhausted. Okay. And that's why weight was such a big deal for me, because then people would judge me and they could see that I was a failure. And it was just like a constant reminder in my face, like, you're not good enough. Proof. Okay. How much can you relate to all of this? All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about writing the script. what do you want your life to look like? How do you want to perceive your life? And then we talk about that memorizing. And so really what I'm talking about in the memorizing is that difference between the brushing your teeth and the chocolate bar, the verses. So even though we get this like very quick reward, external reward for eating a chocolate bar, I'm wanting you to really decide, like, what kind of human do I want to be to myself? What kind of person do I want to be? Am I being so unkind to myself and being so hard on myself that I need to go to social media, or I need to go to shopping, or I need to go to eat a chocolate bar to make myself feel better? Or can I just go on the long run and, like with brushing your teeth, there isn't an immediate reward. But when you really think about it, it's like, wow, that was so good. I'm so glad I'm taking care of my teeth. I'm so good to myself. It's this mental, like I'm a good person, and I don't need to have this like dopamine of the sugar and the refined sugar and flour. It's like, I really love that I take some time and chop some vegetables and just really like sit with my food. I turn off my phone. I connect with my body. I nurture my body. I love that my digestive system is so happy, breaking down all these minerals and nutrients. I love that I'm doing this. I love that I plan, and that I always make sure I have good food for myself. I love that about me. That is the difference. That's what I'm talking about. So even like memorizing that in our body and memorizing those patterns, because it's going to change the way that you show up for yourself. And then the last step is that you want to become that version of you. So one of the things that I did back in 2019, May of 2019, is I spent a lot of time writing as if it already happened. And we do this in my program, but we talk about, oh, and by the way, so working with me, we would be working through this, and then there's a bunch of worksheets. So uncovering beliefs, what do you want to believe, mental rehearsal, and thoughts to think. There's so much to this, but I spent a lot of time verbally and in written form imagining the life that I really wanted to have. And I really dedicated hours to it over a month period. It was really interesting to see what started happening. And then I made it a practice. And so I would drive in the car by myself, and I would start describing the life that I wanted to have. And then when I first started this practice, I thought it was the craziest thing ever. And I would laugh out loud and think, what's wrong with you, Dara? How could you even imagine that? How could you even say those things? And when I go back to my journal and I look through it, so many of those things have come true. I never imagined that I could be a person that could just go through grocery stores. I could go to restaurants. I could go to parties. I could go to events, and I wouldn't need to have the desserts. I wouldn't need to have all those things. It is such a game changer for me. I can now go to parties. Well, I can go to, even for like my house is like a party. I have 5 kids still, but like I can have food around, and I can go places. I can order my kids all Dairy Queen and all of that. And I have no problem with not eating any of their French fries or anything. It's not a problem. I smell it, I enjoy it, and I move on. I still plan Joy Eats. I still have my apple crisp. I still have that, but the attachment to food and the way that I show up around food is completely different. And I am helping my clients do the same thing. And that is very exciting. So in this webinar, I really want you to have 3 things that you took from it. One was, we need to start, 95% of our thoughts are unconscious. and to become more conscious. And just even imagine if you could just become a little bit more conscious every day, even like 1% more conscious every day over 30 days. Look at that difference, 30% more conscious. That's incredible. So then you're not turning to food or over Facebooking or over shopping. So you need to start paying attention to your body. So if you're feeling kind of this, like your heart is kind of beating, or you have this pit in your stomach, you're like, oh, wait a minute. You just have to stop and just like, what's going on? And just kind of get a little curious. So that's number one. Start paying attention to your body cues, feeling those emotions, recognizing them, just saying, oh, I'm feeling, my stomach is feeling like kind of uncomfortable. I wonder what's going on. So that is number one, paying attention to your body cues. Number two is understanding that we have unconscious models. Like we have this, we always are getting our results in our life. We always are. It's not our husband. It's not the government. It's always us. We always decide. So I want you to own, that's number two, is owning that we are always getting other results in our life. And we can just start getting aware of those unconscious thoughts. And the more we can become aware of the unconscious thoughts, we can start deciding, what do we actually want to believe? And my biggest advice to you all is to just start getting super curious of, why am I going there? Like a curious little 3-year-old. Why? That's going to be a game changer for you. Because if you're having all these negative thoughts about yourself, because it's not comfortable being you, you are now going to external things to feel better. So that's called buffering. So when you are going to an external thing to make you feel better emotionally, internally, that's a buffer. So that is the second thing we have to be really, really aware of, is if you're turning to outside things to make you feel better internally. And the third part about this webinar I really wanted to help you understand is that the brain, the only way the brain knows something, it doesn't know if it's real or not. It only knows if you believe it by the way your body feels when you think it. So becoming aware, so understanding that if you start changing the way you think, you can change your life. So, and the way you do that is to write a script. So you can start doing what I did, is writing how I want it to be. And then I would spend time learning what that looks like. So for example, be a simple example of, I just go to Dairy Queen and I don't order anything for me. I order for my kids. Mostly it was Wendy's and ice cream at McDonald's. They have Frosties there. They're $1. I spent the entire summer, I ordered them 3 times a week at least. And I just practiced being someone who didn't need a lick or a bite or any of that. And so I would practice that. Like, I'm just a person that sits in the car with 5 kids that have ice creams and Frosties, and I don't need them. And I just practice, like, because my joy, where does my joy come from? From just being in the car with my kids, having a car, whatever that is, having the money that I could just do that I can spend this time. So that is just a very simple example. And so when you can do that, then you're conscious. And so you can give yourself your own positive self-talk. So the last thing I just wanted to talk a little bit about, our time is almost up, is so it's going back to that, when I was telling about this belief system. So if you believe that you're never going to lose the weight, then you've got this like pressure, this tension, and cortisol is released in our body when we have stress. And the reason why we have more cortisol when we're stressed is back in the day when we had danger. So for example, even cortisol will like open our eyes more. It heightens our, like our stress, right? We get more alerted to all of our surroundings. And that was really important back in the day when we had children and there was like tigers. or buffalo or, dangerous animals, and we didn't have the security of a house. So that was helpful then, but now we don't have those same things. And so cortisol, a lot of, if you have a lot of belly fat, it's because you're experiencing a lot of cortisol, a lot of stress, and that's going into your belly fat. So I do teach how to reduce that and how to work through that. But so I appreciate you so much for being here. I really want to emphasize the importance of getting in tune with our thoughts. Our thoughts truly do create our reality. And the more conscious we become of our thoughts, and if you came and work with me, I could help you become even more aware of the thoughts and not to be afraid of them. And we can do tools like this to help you to create new ones. All right. I love you all. If you want to talk to me about working in my program, please contact me. This is a game changer. The tools that I teach you are literally like a toolbox, and we just get better and better at using them the more and more we use them. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.